Welcome, Inspired Hive. I'm so glad you're tuning in. Today's episode is a solo one, captured in the moments after a situation unfolded. It's about challenges that lead up to my half marathon race a few weekends ago. When I listened back to my recording, I realized it's a short episode that doesn't need a lot of introduction or explanation. The lesson is sweet and easy to capture. So take 10 minutes for yourself. Head outside, put in the earbuds, and get into motion while you listen. And then take a moment to breathe and reset for the rest of your day. Hello, this is a solo episode of the Inspired Hive Podcast. There were a lot of events this past week that have brought this episode to the forefront for me. Around this time of year, there are so many activities that are wrapping things up for the end of school years, that are announcing transitions to new things and new adventures, to all sorts of changes and culminations of training, of education, of things that we've been working on in various aspects of our lives. For me, this past week was one of those examples of how a mistake that you thought you had done something and turned out maybe you hadn't can really be a blessing in disguise. I'm recording this towards the middle of May. Back in January, I started training for a half marathon that was scheduled for this past weekend. I was training for a winter running series that's part of that. I signed up, I successfully ran those. And in my mind, no reason why I had not signed up for this half marathon. My besties are flying out. They both signed up for their courses. And so picked my girlfriend up on Wednesday, and she's reviewing her emails and all the fun emails she'd be receiving about the race. I'm like, well, wait a minute. I haven't received any of those. And I look back and go through things and come to find out I have been training all this time for a race that I failed to sign up for. Slight mistake. I started to feel pretty down because now I've got my besties flying out to run this thing and no race to run, no bib. Everything's closed. There is not a single race for the weekend series available to register for. But I emailed the race director who said, hey, try this Facebook group because even though the early transfer deadline has passed, if both people are willing to show up and come to the Solution Center desk at the race, they will change and transfer the bib. So I pulled up my britches. I got in the Facebook group. I see that, folks are trying to transfer for all sorts of things. And I just posted out, I was looking for a bib for a half marathon. But then I also saw that another participant had posted they were looking to transfer their bib for the half marathon. And so I commented and said, hey, I'd be open to this. We communicated. We set up a time that would work. He offered a price that I thought was pretty amazing because that was like half price of what the bib would be. And I was kind of skeptical. I thought, maybe this is a scam. Maybe I'll get there and they won't show up. But you know what? We got to the expo just in time, got to the place we were going to meet. We met up. The person showed up and they had a bib to transfer. And kind of waiting in line for the solutions team to help us make that happen, I asked what was going on and, shared that I neglected somehow to register for the race, but it was my comeback race from having a health situation last year. And the gentleman said, I broke my leg a year ago and really thought that I would be able to run this. I had signed up and then the injury happened, but I thought I could come back, and it just one thing after another. And just couldn't get around to doing the training and thought he would post out to transfer it. Well, little did I realize that this was a VIP bib. And in this race, the VIPs get a special bus to the start line. They get breakfast. They get a lot of special treatment. They have VIP on their bib. Like, I had no clue of all this. Never heard of these things in races before, but absolutely amazing that this person was willing to drive almost an hour to the expo to allow me to transfer the bib. And it turned into be one of the most special ways to run a race. Having trained and expecting to run, it wasn't that I wasn't ready. It was that I had gone through this whole roller coaster of now I've messed up so much, I won't be able to run. And yet I took some action. I took some steps that allowed me to continue forward to actually be able to show up with a bib on race day at the start line of the designated race and carry that bib for two people. For this gentleman who was so gracious to transfer the bib, and for the comeback of what I hope will inspire his journey to racing next year in the same race. And I proudly carried that bib for him all the way to the finish and did it by intuition. And what I mean by that is I didn't set my timer for my walk or my run breaks, but I set the pace to be what was comfortable for me and crushed what I had anticipated was going to be a very long half marathon into what was a reasonable pace time for me in crossing that line. And a lot of other things happened this weekend that could have been interruptions, barriers, challenges, and just I could simply have said, you know what, it's not for me this time, I guess. But instead, I focused on what could be possible. How might this be able to work itself out? How, even though there was a mistake made, could this be a lesson? I won't forget to triple, quadruple check next time. This could have been so different, and I didn't let it be that way. I focused on the steps or the ways that could make this possible. I think that is really the message that I want to bring to this episode, and that it's not just simply, planning for something. It's not about the triple checking. It really is about if your heart's in that goal, if you've really been working towards something, that there are different action steps that you can take that can still help you reach that accomplishment. And it may look very different to how you initially thought that was going to be. But when you surround yourself and reach out to your community of support, when you ask others who might have an idea of how this could happen or what you could do, when you follow those steps with anticipation of the possibilities, mistakes can really turn into blessings. And that was my lesson this weekend. We all make mistakes. There's learning in many of them, probably all of them. And so many of us try very hard not to make those mistakes, which is great intention. But it's also important to know that there are a number of growth points and lessons and learning within those failures and those mistakes that are much more valuable than simply doing it as it's planned, as it's written, or as you intend. So with that, I'm going to close this episode with a quote from B.F. Skinner. A failure is not always a mistake. It may simply be the best one can do under the circumstances. The real mistake is to stop trying.
So grateful you listened to this episode of the Inspired Hive Podcast. Be sure to follow me on social media at Inspired Hive Podcast, and don't forget to subscribe to the podcast. I can't wait to see you back here for our next episode, and as always, remember to live inspired.